Welcome back to another episode of Business Journey Unlocked. I'm joined today by Chris Chetty, founder and CEO of Chetty Groups Holding, a modern holding company operating in the venture capital space. Chris brings a decade of experience building and scaling businesses across consumer goods, sports, technology, hospitality, and wellness, with a focus on discipline, execution, and long-term value creation. Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I'm going to shoot it over to you since you'll explain yourself far better than I ever could.
Oh, it was pretty good actually. It was probably better than I always hate talking about myself, but pleasure to connect with you as well, Kevin, and thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So, why? Because given your experience, given how you were a police officer, what exactly was the pivotal moments in you transitioning from law enforcement work to focusing on venture capital?
It was a very well, first of all, it wasn't planned, that's for sure. And just like when I was with Toronto Police, I actually wasn't a constable. I was a civilian, so I worked behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And during my time with the drug unit and internal affairs, I was exposed to a lot of interesting things and learned a lot along the way. But, I just felt like there was more. I didn't know what that was. I had the safe cushion government job that, I pretty much could have locked up for the rest of my working career. But I just felt like there was still something else out there and I didn't know what that was. And, I was there for 5 years and I had a great relationship with them and I was transparent with them and I said, listen, I feel like I need to look at something else and I, you know, resigned on great terms with a open door if I ever wanted to come back. But I didn't also just do that and then just stopped and just started from fresh or started from scratch. I went and got my mortgage agent license because I had a pretty substantial network coming from the entertainment sector. So the way my life cycle was basically, I had a lot of friends and family that used to come to my events that I used to put together, and then I would eventually DJ their weddings, and then I would eventually get them their mortgages. So it was kind of a cool unplanned sales cycle, if you will. But that's kind of how things started, and that way it gave me a cushion to continue to get out there, meet people, shake hands, and I always call it like the red car theory. We touched on this, about just always keeping your ears and eyes open for opportunities. And that's when I started to dabble a little bit into just investment into the private sector, and some of those investments, did okay, and I just essentially took those earnings and re-rolled them into acquiring other assets, whether it's real estate, stock in other company, equities in other company, advisory seats. That's kind of how it snowballed. And then I didn't realize that Chetty Group was forming. I just kind of had all these things going on, and I said I got to kind of put them all under one umbrella. So after speaking to a couple of advisors and good friends and mentors, that's how they recommended that I kind of structure things. And then from there, I started to learn to say the word no to most opportunities because I was always like saying yes, 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 wanting to get my hands in as many things as possible. But after a while, it can be certainly overwhelming. And that's when I started to pick and choose the sectors that now make up Chetty Group, the things that like actually excite me, and things that I want to be a part of. And that's really kind of how things begun.
It's interesting that you take more of a operator-led focus as opposed to the traditional passive income investments that people typically do. And that's how you initially started to begin with, but then it transitioned into something more fruitful. And I do agree in the beginning, it is easy to say yes. You're just trying to acquire as much revenue for the business, as much clients, but it comes to a point you start getting standards, you start getting preferences, which happens with any business. Across your diverse ecosystem, especially starting out, what was the hardest system to implement to allow you to master the systems that now define the edge in Chetty Group?
Great question. I think, going back to your original point where when things were snowballing and we were, we had our hands in multiple sectors, that was really the starting point. And then once we started, like, I always had this family business in the CPG space that was kind of at a crossroads, and I wasn't sure if it was another project that I wanted to take on myself. So I gave that time because it's something I'm very passionate about, but it wasn't part of the original core of what we call Chetty Group. So
Mm,
that and being a sports junkie ever since I was a kid, those were areas that I always wanted to have, rolled up into Chetty Group. But, timing is everything. And just because it doesn't happen today doesn't mean it's not gonna happen tomorrow. But more importantly, you gotta be ready for it. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I learned along the way, is that again, you don't have to just say yes and be a people pleaser and do whatever you can to get in the room. Like, you got to be able to stand on your own 2 feet and know when to say no, and also understand the importance of timing. And I think that's what has evolved over time, because I've only had Chetty Group going for about 6 years now. So, I started late, um, but everything happened like really fast and really quickly. So that I think is really one of the most foundational bases.
it's never too late to start anything, especially a business. It's more harmful when you don't do anything at all. Then you always think about, what if I did that, or I could have done that. The interesting thing is you actually did it, and look where you are
Yeah,
now.
and still doing it. Still doing it. Still, riding with my team. I'm very, very blessed to have a very small circle of committed and dedicated and loyal friends who have now become family, who become associates, who become business partners, and these are people that I've known for a number of years, and through the good and through the bad, because it's not all roses, I'll tell you that. And it's one thing to say, yeah, I want to become an entrepreneur, or I want to start my own business, which is great. We all have great ideas, we all have aspirations, but I think the most important thing is, know what you're signing up for, because it's easier said than done. And if you don't grind your tail off and just continuously be persistent and consistent, y- you're going to be on the short end of the stick. And then there's a lot of people that just tend to, like, fool themselves to think that, well, yeah, I'm kind of doing it, so yeah, I'm truly, like, working towards my goals, but are you really working towards it? And
Mhm.
that's where you got to have those questions and those face-to-face meetings in the mirror, right, to just really know what you're signing up for. But surrounding yourselves with people that are like-minded, that latch onto the vision, that fuel you, giving fuel to a founder of belief does so much, because there's times where it's easy to give up, it's easy to say, I don't think I can do this anymore. But betting on yourself, like Sam Walton, how old was he when he started Walmart, right? Like, think about KFC, like, think about so many big box brands that, you know to the general eye, it started later in that person's life from a founder's perspective. But if those things didn't happen, where would we be, right? And how would the world look and feel? And in today's technological digital era, we can do so much in such little time
Mhm.
that it's scary. But it's what side of the fence are you on, right? Like, are you going to take advantage of that, or are you going to let other people get ahead of you because you have reservations, or you don't believe that that's the way the world works now?
I do agree. It's all about the mindset too. You could have all the tools or all the resources at play, but if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't believe in the execution or what you're offering as well, you're not going to go anywhere. So many
100%.
people fail to look at the fact that busy doesn't necessarily mean you're moving the needle. If you're not doing, I don't want to say revenue based activities, but if you're not doing essentially to move your company, if you're just grinding in paperwork, grinding in mundane stuff that actually won't move the needle, you're not going to go anywhere. Just because you're busy, it makes people think I'm doing so much for the company. Then you get burned out. You're not going anywhere. Then you're asking yourself, why is nothing going anywhere? Because you're not doing the critical, crucial elements to actually grow and expand your business. And that's what sets certain people apart as well. Even though they started the business, they get into this mindset where busy means good. Busy means I'm actually busy, but busy doesn't mean you're good at all.
Absolutely.
At all.
And that's that, like, well said, because that is something that doesn't resonate as much as it should, to your point. And then, the other thing is too, what do they say? The enemy of perfect is, or sorry, the enemy of good enough is perfect. And that's also a big key too, because there's so many things that people want it to be perfect. And oh my God, it's got to be this in order for me to take that next step. And that's another thing that people tend to make mistakes on. And as long, you just got to get out there. You just got to get out there, move and shake, make it happen, and you tweak and refine as you go. It's really that simple. KISS, right? Keep it simple. I won't
Keep
say
it
the other
stupid
S, but
simple.
you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, keep it stupid simple.
Well, there you go. That's better. I like that.
So you briefly touched on you're more selective now with people that you bring capital to. What's the standard principle that you have in your business that allows you to work with certain companies? And if any come to mind, what were some of the situations where you decided to back off from?
Okay, so you know you always look at who's in front of it, right? To for starters. So like when there was points where I would have like weekly VC meetings with other VCs, and we'd sit in a room or remotely, and we're getting pitched by I'm not exaggerating, 20 to 30 companies in a day. It was kind of like a virtual Shark Tank, but again, not shark by any stretch of the imagination there, right? So, but like we got a chance to listen to passionate founders, whether they were in an MVP stage or pre-seed, or they just got the company off the ground, or they've generated a little bit of revenue. So they're all at different stages, but you get a chance to sit down, you ask them some questions, you get to hear how they respond. And then when you start, like they say, when there's smoke, there's usually fire, right? And sometimes you can get it from body language, or you can get it from your due diligence side of things. So it's a matter of finding out like what the founder is about. I'm always a big believer, and I don't care about your past. I don't care about the struggles you've gone through, because that's part of the process. And if you are dialed in and you're committed to your project, and you're going to find a way to get it done, that's what we look for. You invest in the person more so the business. And again, in the early stages, yeah, did I say yes a few too many times of investing my own money into certain projects? Yeah, I did. And without doing, the proper diligence, or simply saying no because it wasn't the right fit. It was really just trying to give them another opportunity, give them another chance, give them some hope and belief. But y- there comes a point, repetition, right? You're able to analyze, and you're able to dissect what looks real, what doesn't, and what's fluffy, right? And over time, you kind of get really good about figuring that out. Now we're not right all the time, but nobody's right all the time. So it's a numbers game, but it's also a gut game too.
It's all about the instinct.
Yeah,
You briefly touched on how it's all about how I feel with the person, and I do agree. So many people are wrapped up in the effect on how great their offer is, how great their products are, but then they fail to realize that people connect with people. People buy from people. And if you don't portray yourself as having that execution, that ambition, and that good character, nobody's going to want to partner with you. No one's going to want to invest their capital into your services or your company. That's just plain and
100%.
simple.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, the other part to that too is depending on like what that relationship is between the investor and the founder, right? Like,
Mhm.
are you looking for an angel, or are you looking for an advisory, type of role, or do you want that investor to be active, right? So it's also depending on like the type of relationship that the founder is looking for, because let's just say, yeah, I either want you to come on as an advisor, or I want you to come in and be active. Okay, well, how well do you take direction, right? How well do you plan? How well do we, like, when we sit down and roll up the sleeves and say, okay, well, what's behind the curtain? What's open up the hood? And then if we're able to depict some of the areas of opportunity, and if the founder's not receptive, right, then again, it comes back to what are you willing to do? How are you willing to compromise in order to move your company forward? And that's an area that a lot of founders get stuck with, because it's like it's either my way or the highway. Well, if it was, then why isn't it working, right?
Exactly.
And that's where you got to learn when to be humble, and Humility comes into play, and we get it. Like, a lot of founders, including myself, many times, have been overextended because we went all in on, our silos or our projects or multiple projects. So I get it, but there has to be a little bit of give and take.
A fine line, so to speak. No, I
Yeah.
understand that. As the market shifts to capital discipline, what single non-financial metric does Chetty Group use to evaluate portfolio health, and how does that dictate the current strategy you have in your company?
It's a very simple metric. It's market cap.
Market
If
cap?
you're simply in a business or in a sector or in an industry that is very capped, doesn't have the ability to either go this way or go that way, that's going to ultimately determine how much you're going to make on your return,
Mhm.
and then also too, like, depending on what market cap you're in, that's gonna also look to liquidity events, right? So, like, as an investor, you always wanna look at, okay, what are the exit strategies? How can I get my money out? And when can I get my money out?
Mm,
And those 2 things will quickly determine whether or not it's a project that one wants to invest into, or if it's investable. Because, some businesses are great businesses that, cap out at 100, $200,000 a year because it's owner operator. So it's like you can't scale it properly. You can't make money while you sleep, but it's a great business. So you just got to really know, what outfits make the most sense for the investor, and ultimately what is your ROI.
interesting. That's actually pretty interesting. I never really thought about it like that way before.
I used
Based
to
on
look at it a million other different ways, which was
Yeah.
very time consuming. And I said, I can't do this because it just takes up too much time, especially when you really dig in and dial in. And then, yeah, so I just kind of had to simplify it, and that's where I'm at now.
Based on all the experiences you've had in the past, you did touch on how the hardest thing is for the founders exactly understanding where they want to go. There's a reason why I'm here to help you. Besides looking at that, do you see any other costly operational frictions that might originate in certain companies? And if so, that friction does in turn have the lost capital, the lost synergy. Just don't know if there's like a pattern that you've seen personally that businesses could try to eliminate to further get the capital gains, the most amount of market cap, and just having that coexisting.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is identified and unpacked in the due diligence phase, right? Because, like, when you, let's just say, you with a founder, you like what they hear, like what they have to offer, you like them, and then you put a term sheet together and say, this is either we are offering what you're asking for, or we're countering with something else because of information that we may have about the industry or the vertical, for that matter. And then when we get into the due diligence side of things, and we look at not necessarily just the books, but, like, show us what your organization looks like on paper. And if it's just you, that's cool. But show us how you are currently operating. And ultimately, every company has a gross margin, right? And a net profit. And ultimately, we want to see what those numbers are. And if those numbers align with where your business is at in your market and in your sector, well, then you're on the right path. Then you either just simply need cash to scale your business, whether it's to bring on more people onto the team, put it into technology if you want to think, being optimal and efficient. So you're able to identify where the money may need to go. But then at the same time, you also have to be aligned with the founder to see if they're receptive to that type of feedback and are open to going down that path with you. If they're saying, well, no, it's got to be this way, well, then it starts to become a little bit of a pissing match, right? And
Right.
and it's ultimately finding the medium that makes sense for everyone. And once you kind of get there, and a lot of that's discovered in the due diligence, because ultimately a game plan's got to be put together before anything is signed, right? We're not going to just close our eyes, sign a check, and then just hand it over and say, okay, figure it out, or report back to me every quarter, and then we kind of go from there. There are more steps now that that I take, at least, in the initial stages, to even determine if it's something I want to go down the path with. Because if it's not worth the headache, it's not worth the headache. At the end of the day.
Well, it just comes back to qualifying that individual in the company. And it's just determining you gotta cross your T's, dot your I's to make sure what they're offering to make sure that their character is aligned to what's aligned for you and your company as well. It's just looking
Exactly.
on that outline.
Exactly, exactly. And that's really what it boils down to. You know, you hit the hammer on the nail, and that's it's ultimately what are you in for? What are you looking to do? What are you looking to accomplish? And then how does that meet at the intersection of where the potential investor is, right? And everybody talks about getting into business and starting things together, but nobody ever talks about the awkward part, which is the exit, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
w- n- a lot of people just choose not to talk about it. And it's like, that should be one of the first things that you talk about to determine if you even want to get in. Right. And, that's why I go back to liquidity events. Like, what does that look like? And is everyone aligned? Cause that's got to be drafted up in the agreements and the terms. Right. So, yeah.
Looking more deep in your company, going on 12, 24 months within your organization, are you planning on implementing any new technology, any new system investments to essentially future proof Chris Chetty Group and handling the next magnitude of portfolio complexity?
Technology is going to be the backbone of Chetty Group, in a much, much, much larger scale in the coming 12 to 24 months. Because I understand a little bit of it, not a lot, a little bit, but also respecting and acknowledging that it is absolutely needed in today's business generation, right? So, whether it's in the CPG side of things or in the sports side of things, or in biotech, or in some of the other sectors that we're in, technology's got to really be a driving force because it's ultimately going to lead to running lean companies, being efficient, being optimal, but also being able to understand how to read the data. Because everything requires an evaluation. But if you can evaluate something quicker in a shorter period of time, that technology allows you to do that. That's why it's got to be literally a cornerstone to Chetty Group, and we're working very hard on you know fitting that into our model and into our ecosystem. And we're really excited to see how things start to deploy, throughout 2026 and also in 2027 and above and beyond.
It's also from the fact that you can do a lot more output as well. Instead
Yes.
of taking, for example, 3 days, you can do it maybe about a day, day and a half. It just keeps on constantly going in the back burner, so to speak. But
Yeah.
given
and,
your
and,
focus, go on.
and to your point, it's like, the more time you can buy back, you can reallocate those same hours into other tasks and other deliverables, right? So
Exactly.
you're absolutely right. It's literally buying you time.
It's just essentially giving you time for revenue-based activity as opposed to focusing on the back end, the paperwork aspect. I
Yeah.
agree 100%.
Exactly.
Given your focus on being an operator-led holding company, what's the single most important lasting change you hope that you and your organization are giving on the founders, the companies that you're getting connected with and helping out?
One word: disruption. um I'm big on that term because when or at least my message to all the founders out there, or the to be founders one day, you don't always have to just look at sectors and industries of just doing the conventional path of whatever that business is, right? It's find a need, fill a need. And if there are holes, or there are areas of opportunities in industries whether you are familiar with, it's a lot easier when you're looking at industries that you're passionate about, because that's passion is another cornerstone that I highly recommend that you follow when looking at your business sectors. That's what really is the foundation of Chetty Group. It's why does it have to be done that way? And maybe that's the way my brain's wired, but it's led to disrupting in the psychedelic space, disrupting in the medical cannabis space, disrupting in sports with technology, and then also disrupting in the CPG space, when it comes to consumer acquisition and client retention, and just offering things that hey, that's kind of cool. Like you see it on Shark Tank, and you see it on the news and on TV, of all these cool inventions or cool new ways to do things that go against the grain. And I love that. It excites me. And That's what I that's the you know, if you were to just kinda summarize Chetty Group, it's disruption. One word. And not in a bad way. Not in a harmful way by any means, but, hey, can we do something different? And then if we can do it better as well, that's a bonus.
Providing the value to the company is all that really matters at the
Yeah.
end. It's all that really matters. Before we wrap up here, I always love asking this question to other CEOs and founders. What personal habit or belief that you have, that you carry day to day, helped you build the life, help build the company that you have that succeeded right now?
It's the it's self-talk. Your mind is an engine. So what you put in it is what you get out of it. And the world is filled with so much negative bullshit. One, I don't really watch the news. That's been something that I've kind of really gotten good at over the last 15 years. Now, I'm not saying I don't watch it at all, but I don't get plastered to it because it's full of negativity. And
Um,
people live in fear and like, oh, I don't want to do this, I don't want to try this, and it's everything that you're allowing to get into your brain, and especially being around negative people, because if you be around negative people, you will become negative. You become who you associate yourself with. And the power of self-talk, telling yourself that you the positive things that your mind needs to hear and see, because it actually puts it into motion, right? It's all these little things that all collectively come together that continuously, it's like building a muscle, right? It's muscle memory, but at the same time, it's getting you out of bed when you need to get out, or getting you to take care of this task, or getting you to prioritize your time in that day where you have multiple things that you got to accomplish. It's what you put into your mind that's ultimately going to dictate your output.
mhm. I agree. It's also about just doing the same stuff every single day, even though you have to do it. It's all discipline too. As long as you're disciplined as well, then you'll go far in life. There's so many people, especially in my generation, who don't have that discipline, who just wake up and they just think to themselves, oh, it's just another day. But it's another day that you're alive. It's another day that you can actually do stuff, because there's a lot of people that wish they were in your situation, that wish they had the body that you have, the mind that you have, the vision in a way, but it just lies on that there's a lot of people that aren't grateful for what they have. And
You
once you can have that shift in the mindset, the shift from the negative environment, sure, the environment largely dictates on how you think and feel. You did briefly touch on that. But if you can shift your mindset to focus on the actual environments in which you would have a, a more, how should I say, positive attribute in life, you gotta find that. You have to absolutely find that, because if you're just thinking in a negative attribute, if you're thinking in just a low state mind, everything around you will look low state, as we talked about before with the red car theory. If you have that mindset, then you're gonna see every little thing as that, and that's the worst thing to do.
Yeah, and like you're spot on there, because it comes back to, like, there are two types of people in this world, right? There are people that make shit happen, and then there are people that look at it and say, "What happened?" Right? And then, you know, there's also the proactive side and the reactive side. And, another tip that I'll give out there is when you if you're stuck in that cycle where you wake up and you kind of don't know what your day is going to be like, or you don't know how to put forth your day, what also helps is writing out 3 goals the night before. Whether, you write it on a paper, or you write it in your phone on a notepad, or you write it on your mirror in your bathroom, somewhere where you're going to physically see something, and you basically you start to plant those seeds the night before. So when you wake up with a little bit of a purpose in terms of, okay, I want to knock these 3 things out. And when you knock those 3 things out, it could be simple things like make my bed. Like, I'm not being facetious here. Like, literally make my bed, go for a run, eat a great solid breakfast. Those are 3 things that you can get done before noon. Well, technically, you should get it done a lot sooner than noon, but it starts to build momentum, and and
Exactly.
and and the sense of accomplishment becomes contagious. and now you can start to grow on that. And now, let's just say a few weeks before you're like, yeah, I wrote down three goals to just kind of kickstart my day. Now you're at 10, or now you're at 15, or now you're at 20, or you're back down to 5, but there are 5 different, like it's a different level of goals that you're setting for your next day, right? And all of those things make the biggest difference in the world. And that repetition, right? It's all about reps and consistency in anything you do, good or bad. So, you know, that's my 2 cents.
The small ones do really add up. If you think about it, it's all about the compounding effect.
The
That's
big
all it comes
wins
to.
are all made up of small wins.
Correct.
No way there's no way around it. So to your point, that's exactly it. That's exactly it.
For anyone who's listening or watching this, what's the best place for them to reach out to you and or Chetty Group Holding?
I kind of like to live like a ghost, to be honest. At least for at least for the time being. Um, I got 2 little ones that keep me busy, and obviously my projects require a lot of my attention. But I am making a promise that as much as I hate to get in front of the camera, to do podcasts and stuff like, because I'm not that guy. I that is one of my goals for 2026 is to do a little bit more of that, and to share my stories and share my tips, on the conventional social media platforms, and maybe a new platform that's coming, something else that I'm kind of working on from a tech standpoint. So, I think that's how I'm going to help people is to share my stories, share my experiences, share my failures, which there are a lot. It's never been rosy and just smooth sailing, from my end. So I think getting that content out there throughout the course of this year is probably going to be the best way to help people. And who knows, we'll maybe you'll see some announcements along the way, and maybe get some of our products and services in front of you without realizing it, and connecting that way too.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today, Chris. I really do appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Kevin. Thanks very much for your time, and thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you.